We are finally here in terms of some Team USA basketball. Why we are here, Joel Embiid as part of Team USA for the very first time in his career. And it should be an exciting game to kick things off for their exhibition schedule against Team Canada, a worthy opponent, of course, to kick things off. Welcome to the PHLY Sixers podcast, brought to you by our great friends from Rothman Orthopedics as they sponsor us here on our trip. As Kyle was, showing off and modeling the hat. You can go get yourself a hat, especially when you go ahead and get some work done there like I have. You'll get something like that, or a t-shirt, or maybe even a book, or a mug, a water bottle, whatever it might be. Well, we have a lot to get to from Team USA with Joel Embiid, how he is fitting in there with that particular team. Game time tonight against Canada should be fun. We'll be in the building for that exhibition game. We'll talk about Summer League game number 2 for the Summer Sixers as Jared McCain, Ricky Council IV, and company took on a Memphis Grizzlies team, and they unfortunately lost that one at the buzzer. We'll also speak about some other Team USA happenings that have come down the line here in the last couple of hours, and also a few other things. But I got to tell you, it wasn't all that difficult to get back into the hotel here. As we got back, it was pretty smooth for us to get into the hotel. But fellas, as I'm always with Kyle Neubeck and Derek Bodner here on the show, we had a time yesterday, and it was pretty. It was a nice story to tell here for this one as we start off with our Team USA experience. Derek, this one was an interesting one. First, could you tell us how it went on Monday when you got here before Kyle and I did, and how seamless everything was for you?
Well, like most things related to PHLY, everything was easy before you two showed up. No, Monday, you showed up at the Thomas Mack Center at UNLV. At about 1:30 or so, they ushered you over to the practice facility, which is right next door. You watched about 30 minutes of practice, talked to the coach, or talked to Steve Kerr, talked to the players. Everything was great. Yesterday, it was a little bit more hectic than that. I'm not entirely sure how much we're allowed to say on this. I'm joking, I think, but we're all a little cautious not to get carted off here and talk.
I'll take the risk. Don't be a coward.
Come on. Go ahead.
Listen, as the only person here who knows someone that's been hauled off by the Secret Service, presumably, I'm okay with just stating the events as they happen. So we show up to the media center near where Team USA is practicing. And it was empty much earlier than we had been anticipating. We were there about a half hour before we were expected to be let into practice, and everyone was gone. So first alarm bell goes off for us. We walk over. There's no line. There's no sightings of anybody.
Oh, this is great, right?
Other than the autograph seekers, the people hanging out, looking for the buses. Like, okay, well, we'll probably just get right in whenever we figure out where we need to go into. So there's
Meanwhile, real fast, Kyle, when we get out of the car, we're like, damn, it's hot. It's already 1:15 outside. Damn, it's hot. Let's go inside where it's cool. Okay, great.
Let's get into the air-conditioned gym, go watch some basketball, whatever. So it's the three of us, and there's a couple more gentlemen who are trying to get in that apparently know somebody important at Team USA. And we get the door open, and a guy who at the time I was like, was this guy like I'm not trying to be too pejorative here, but like a rent-a-cop, like mall security guard, campus police type of guy.
He was Paul Blart.
He's like, hey, you're not allowed in here. He gives us like a very stern. I'm being a little unfair. He was very calm, collected, whatever.
He was stern, but not mean.
Yeah, he was not being a jerk. And of course, me being the asshole that I am.
Do you know who I
was
am?
Immediately like, no, we're supposed to be here. And I'm like waving the credential at him, thinking like he thinks that we're probably autograph hunters or whatever, people who are there not for, and that's all that's going through my head at the time. And then this guy pulls the Uno reverse card, unfurls his badge and goes, yeah, I'm Secret Service. This building is locked down. And I was like, what the hell did I get myself into? I'm getting stopped by Secret Service. We can't get into the building. So we come to find out that Vice President Kamala Harris is visiting with the team. And, not trying to criticize the Secret Service. I do value my freedom and being able to walk around, not get hauled off it with a mask over my head somewhere. But there were a lot of people in that gym,
Yes.
a lot of people who were not, I would say, given the credential screening that people like us were. So it did seem a little bit over the top, but I get it. I'm not the one protecting someone who's potential next in line to be the president of the United States. So it was a very, very interesting experience. We eventually got to see practice, but it was certainly not what I was expecting showing up to UNLV's campus on Tuesday.
Meanwhile, we missed the open session that we were able to see for the final 30 minutes of practice. We got in around 1:30. It's 15, I'll say that, maybe whatever it was. It was hot. And they had us standing out there waiting. They even told us at one point, folks, all right, she's about to, we're about to do whatever we need to do. Can you go stand at the top of the step now, which is even more in the sun?
Can you go stand in as direct of sunlight as humanly possible?
Yes. But I did think it was smooth, though, because like you said, Kyle, just explain, you guys explained it perfectly. And then when he unfurled it, just the cool badge, like, yeah, here's my credential. You show me yours, I show you mine. Here's my credential.
Kyle's tone changed pretty quickly there. Like, okay, I'm not talking my way out of this.
Yeah, listen, it's one thing. I will get in a little bit of a pissing contest when I have a thing that says you're supposed to be here. That ends when a federal government agent is like, "Hey, buddy, shut the hell up."
And I'm leaning in. I'm looking at the badge like, wow, I've never seen a Secret Service badge. Okay, cool. And but it was what it was. But once we got in,
I will say, by the way, because I had never seen one, there was that part of me that's like, this guy's a fraud.
Exactly.
No way.
Yeah.
Like, you're Secret Service. Okay, buddy.
Yeah. It looked too foggy. It wasn't clean. Like, shouldn't you have a clean badge and a clean picture and all that stuff? It was an interesting experience, one that I've never had. And so that was a fun one. But once we got in, she was gone, but there were so many other basketball dignitaries, Team USA people. I even saw, I don't know if you guys saw him. You guys are music guys too. I saw Ronnie DeVoe from New Edition in there. Everybody was in there yesterday, and it was pretty cool. It was pretty cool to be in there to see Joel Embiid. So he wasn't on the floor. Practice was done at that time. We got to see Steph Curry do his work, get his work in, post-game work in. Saw Nigel Hayes. Kyle and I were looking like, who the hell is that? Oh, that's Nigel Hayes, formerly of Wisconsin.
He was banging them, man. He made a ton of threes, even for I got it to empty gym, but he was on fire in there.
That's their level, man. That's what they do. But in terms of Embiid, Kawhi Leonard spoke. We'll get to him a little bit later. Kevin Durant spoke. Steve Kerr had a chance to speak to the assembled media as well. And Kyle, you were able to ask a couple of questions, and also you wrote your story on allphly.com that all the people can go check out. If you have not signed up for the Die Hard program to access that piece, make sure you go ahead and do so. But Kyle, some of the things that Kevin Durant, Bam Adebayo, also had some things to say about Joel Embiid, just to share with some of the people who have yet to read your story, but some of the things that you heard from them. What did you make of their thoughts on Joel Embiid in this environment?
Yeah, so I mean, look, you're going to hear this largely the same things from all these guys about what it takes to be a part of a group like this, right? And Bam, I think, summed it up pretty nicely, where he's like, every single guy in here, and I don't think this is actually true, by the way. He said every single guy in here is either the number one or the number two option on their team. Now, you'd certainly go to the Boston guys, say Drew Holiday, and now Derek White, who we'll talk about at some point, are not those guys in Boston. But largely, that's true of everybody else. They are franchise-driving players, the type of people that get paid max money, score a whole lot of points. Most of them are high-level two-way guys. And you don't just get to go out there and, I'm going to go get 30. I'm going to do this. We're going to run everything through me. And, most of these guys have been through this experience before in one way or another. Bam was in, for example, he played in the last Olympics, was the starting center after I believe he actually got cut from the 2019 FIBA World Cup team. And so he's learned from firsthand experience. Like, you have to set some things aside. Like, I'm going to play the way the group needs me to, rather than the way that potentially works for me. And not Adebayo's case, he was saying, I'm going to play the 4. Like, he's going to play in some of these double big looks, or maybe Devon's coveted triple big lineup that he's dying to see while we're out here in Las Vegas or during the Olympics. But Steve Kerr, while Derek was here on Monday, alluded to the fact that, Joel is probably going to set up on the block more and get closer to the rim and post up. And I joked this morning in that story, he might get an honorary key to the city of Philadelphia from all the South Philly dads who are sick of watching Joel shoot jumpers. But, we're going to see certainly what Joel has always done, or has done over the last 3-4 years. It's part of why Team USA recruited him and wanted him to come play for USA basketball. But there'll be times when he's just a screen setter for Steph Curry, or he's spacing the floor so that LeBron can do the slash and kick stuff. And certainly Joel's played with a ton of talented guys at this point in his career. Guys like Jimmy Butler, James Harden, Tyrese Maxey. He's going to be playing with Paul George quite soon. But I think it's just a good way for him to kind of step outside of where he's normally at as the undisputed alpha of the team, the guy through whom all things run. And he's going to have some of that in Vegas and in Paris, and was it Abu Dhabi's the other place that they're going for their pre-Olympic tune-up? And so he'll get some of that, but it'll be good for him, I think, to learn how to kind of elegantly toggle between roles. And what I would be excited for is, with all these high-level offensive players, if he sees, okay, I can leverage my energy, my effort on defense and rebounding more, that maybe he comes out of this experience and says, look, if PG and Tyrese and I can get these role players going early in games and they can carry us on that end, then maybe I can get back to where he thought he'd be at the beginning of his career and say, I want to be defensive player of the year. I want to be up at that level. And so I'm really excited to see what he looks like with this group. I'd be really excited if it was just him, Steph Curry, and basically nobody else. Like what that terrible FIBA World Cup team that finished 4th place. I would be excited to see just those guys. So I'm really compelled by him amongst all these stars, and I can't wait for this game later and the Olympics later this summer.
You make a stop in London too, right? This is completely irrelevant, but I'm just making sure I'm right. I think after Abu Dhabi,
I think you're right. Yeah.
Yes.
They got 5 total games before the real thing, which seems comically small. And it's one thing a lot of players have talked about is like, we've got to get up to speed real quick. And it helps that a lot of us have played FIBA competitions before. It helps that a lot of us have played together before, or that in Embiid and Tatum's case, they've trained together before. So there's some familiarity there. But it is always one of the challenges of America where they don't train outside of 2 weeks leading up to the Olympics pretty much every time. This is a short turnaround.
It absolutely is. So to see where they are matched up against a Canada team that does have a lot of experience of playing together, and that's one of the things that, to your point, that they're going to run into when they play these other teams, is the chemistry that's already there with those groups. But to see him with the passing, some of the highlights that you may see from the scrimmages where a double team is coming one way, he hits Steph Curry cutting back door for a layup because of the attention at Peyton Pritchard, and I can't remember who the big man was defending him at that time. And he just simply drops it off for an easy layup. And that's where the unselfishness comes into play. And that's always the case when you look at these types of environments that they're in, where, to your point, Kyle, not being the alpha, Bam saying, we're all ones and twos and we have to give up and sacrifice because we understand what we're here for. But in this case, we have never seen that. We've seen it in the All-Star game setting, but this is totally different. They're just messing around. This is playing for something. And this is the very first time that he's playing for something. He's never been to an NBA Finals. He's never been to the Olympics. And to be around these players, which was some of the important things that you laid out in your piece earlier this morning, is that to see him and how he adjusts to playing with these guys. Sure, he knows them from the All-Star game experience. But as I just said, that's totally different. So now what do you do when it's a very close game and you do need a bucket? Yes, they might find him. He might be the one that they call his number to get them a bucket. But then there's also that double team that comes that way. And he cannot play that selfish hero basketball. He has to find the open man. He has to find a way to get a much better look elsewhere. And how much is he's gonna trust them? It's not just the shooting. It's that everybody individually can do what he does at a very high level. And is the trust going to be there? And when that does, if and when that does happen to success here, when he takes it back home to Philadelphia, to the 76ers, to George and Maxey out there on the floor, where he's remembering, hey, I know how good these guys are too. And in this situation, in this environment, back at home, we can get it done because I can trust these two to go out there and do what they need to do to get a bucket. So that's why it's important for me with him here, because of him never being in a spot like this, him never experiencing winning. And if they do find a way to win this gold medal, or even if they fall short and they're in the silver, they win the silver or the bronze and they're there, but he was just that close again of winning and experiencing some sort of defeat yet again, how much of that will impact him when he gets back and puts on that Philadelphia 76ers uniform? And that's why I'm very curious to see how this whole thing plays out with him. But one thing I will say too, just looking at him and looking at everyone else, seeing him at 6 All-Star games and knowing that LeBron will pick him first in the draft when they have to pick those teams for the All-Star games, that guy belongs here. And this is the first time again, but just knowing his name matched up with the rest of that roster and the names that you see there, he belongs here. So now will his presence also dictate the same thing when he steps out there on the floor in meaningful situations with the ball in his hands out there with that group?
Yeah, it'll be good to transition from, this team and this experience and playing a reduced role and maybe being more of a setup man or an anchor defensively into the Sixers, because he will have more offensive talent than he's ever had, whether it's Tyrese Maxey and next step in his evolution. And I think last year, Joel Embiid certainly started off the season really making a focus to pass and his playmates involved, but I was probably even more impressed by what he did in the playoffs by, seeding basically some of the fourth quarter option or offense to Tyrese and letting him really be the driving force behind some of that. And he'll have to get a little more comfortable with doing that here in July and August with Team USA. And then hopefully when that transitions into October with the Sixers and you've got more offensive talent that they've had in quite some time, possibly his entire career. Not that Joel Embiid's ever going to take a back seat, but you don't have to be a 35-40% usage guy every night to get it done, especially in the regular season. And you can trust your teammates, and building out that trust in a short time frame without maybe the shared experiences that someone like maybe the Denver Nuggets have. He'll have to do that here in Team USA, and he'll have to do that again with Paul George and the rest of the reigning cast with the Sixers. So it is something he's going to have to get comfortable with, and something I think he has been getting comfortable with over the last couple of years.
And I have some thoughts on the number one option versus, playing more of a egalitarian style coming up after the break. First, we have to hit a few messages from the people that keep the lights on for us. Take it away, Derek.
First up, we want to tell you about Rite Aid, specifically Rite Aid's line of refreshment products. This line of beverages range from familiar family favorites to revitalizing, better-for-you options, and it's available exclusively at Rite Aid. Products include waters, which include purified, spring, electrolyte distilled, and flavored waters, coconut water, which is fat-free, gluten-free, non-GMO, and has less than 1% sugar. There's also single-serve iced tea, juice, and lemonade, sweetened with real sugar and with no preservatives, and a wide range of juices, from pineapple, cranberry, apple, strawberry, lemonade, and many more flavors, with organic options available, which are also great for everyday use or to use as mixers for cocktails and mocktails, which we might get into a little bit here during our very long stay in Vegas.
Might.
It's important to say, what was that? Oh yeah, might. We might be good. We'll see. It's important to stay hydrated, especially during the summer months. Get refreshment delivered. Shop online at riteaid.com/shop for same-day delivery or buy online, pick up in-store of refreshment products.
Well, listen, gang, our next partner is a partner I'm glad we have, because when we are out here in the heat with that sun beating down on my face and I just can't see anything, I know that I'm always prepared because of Shady Rays. You guys can get ready for the season ahead with quality shades from Shady Rays that are built to last. They have you covered with premium polarized shades that won't break the bank. Shady Rays is an independent sunglasses company offering a world-class product rated 5 stars by over 300,000 people. That is quite a few people to give you 5 stars. So keep that in mind as you're considering a purchase with our friends. And look, they have hundreds of options to choose from. You're bound to find the perfect pair to match your style. I'm getting a call from the hotel right now that I'm going to have to hang up on, so that doesn't drive me nuts during the ad read. But look, I did a poor job of setting up for this ad segment because I didn't keep my Shady Rays within reach to put them on. However, Derek and Devon have already seen me wearing them quite a bit on the strip by UNLV's gym because I know that I can rely on Shady Rays to keep me looking stylish, or as some people in the chat have said, like a younger Al Pacino. I wouldn't go that far, but we'll see. That's a credit to me more than Al Pacino for sure. And if your shades ever go missing or take an unexpected hit, don't sweat it. They have the most insane protection in all of eyewear. Every pair is backed by lost or broken replacement. So if you're traveling with them, like I am, somewhere like Vegas, they get banged around on the plane, you can go get them back, and Shady Rays will help you out. We love that. So exclusively for our listeners, Shady Rays giving out the best deal of the season. Head to shadyrays.com and use code PHLY for 35% off of polarized sunglasses. Try for yourself the shades rated 5 stars by over 300,000 people.
All right, and welcome back. And I wanted to make sure that we talk about. I wanted to ask you this, guys. You already mentioned the Steph Curry and the Embiid thing that you're looking forward to. And Derek, I wanted to ask you if there was somebody, one or two players that you're more interested in seeing Joel Embiid partner up with. Of course, it's a 5-man unit on the floor, but just watching basketball and how things play out. If there's anybody on this roster that you're, whether it's defensively working with Drew Holiday, or even offensively working with someone else outside of Steph Curry, that you're looking forward to seeing him out there on the floor with.
I mean, honestly, I feel like Steph is the right answer, both because their skill sets just fit so perfectly, and because it's the closest, sort of parallel with him and Maxey. Not that Maxey's at that level; they're different, they're unique, they have their skill sets, but it's the closest comparison you can find on this roster. So I think Steph is the right answer. It might be the boring answer because I think it's the one that everyone sort of goes to, but I think it's pretty much the right answer. Let's see. Outside of that, I'm interested in double bigs. I don't necessarily like double big lineups. I made that abundantly clear over the last year on this show. But
triple
Bam
big,
is a
baby.
pretty good.
Triple big.
No. Just stop. But Anthony Davis, Bam, they both have the
Real
requisite.
sicko over here, Devon, with the triple big stuff.
Just stop. I'm gonna have to get Bree to mute your mic. You can't do it. But those three have the requisite skill sets that they at least can do it, especially on their stage, especially with some of the FIBA goaltending rules. So that's sort of there. I would say that's where, and I mean, Anthony Davis or Kevin Durant is Kevin Durant if he's able to get fully back on the court here, especially for some of these scrimmages. Those would be sort of like where my head goes.
Kyle, you got anybody else outside of Curry?
Ant-Man. Come on. What are we
Yeah,
talking about here?
That's right. I completely
Come on.
Please,
What are we talking about? After the
You're right.
come on.
You're right. I still would put Step ahead of him.
The recruitment
defend
begins.
that one.
Ant-Man to Philly, 2028, whenever the hell it would be. I don't know.
Right.
When Joel is the old wise, Jedi master, and Ant-Man and Tyrese Maxey, both in their primes, ride off into the sunset with Tyrese, Ant-Man, and Joel. Yeah, I'm curious to see, because look, like obviously you want to see him with LeBron. I think LeBron's ability to play make and do all that stuff is gonna, not just for Joel obviously, but it opens the world up for everybody. Like as long as guys are in the right spots, he will find them. They're gonna have plenty of spacing at all times, and so Joel will presumably get some wide open dunks, layups, looks around the rim. That'll be fun. But while we're on this kind of tangent, the thing that I'm always fascinated by at the Olympics, I know we're all saying, and all the guys say, we have to sacrifice. It's not about getting 30. It's not about being this. When the rubber meets the road in these big games and the elimination games, the medal round, there is always somebody who emerges as like, that's the guy who's getting the ball, right? Like 2008, when they all come together, they were a machine. They chew through the early games, and then they get to that final game against Spain, and with Chris Paul at or near his peak, LeBron certainly at a high level during his Cleveland days, all these other guys. It was Kobe who got the ball. Like, he was the guy, and obviously at that point his reputation was what it was. But then you look at some of these other teams, like Kevin Durant he's now the undisputed top scorer in U.S. men's Olympic history for Team USA. And he's been that guy at times in the past couple of Olympics where some of the other stars have not come. He's been one of the main guys, and he's the reason they've been able to keep winning these gold medals despite not having what people think is the A team. And so, we've heard what Ant-Man, for example, has had to say about, I think everyone else needs to work around me. And I know some of that is a little bit tongue in cheek, but when they play the teams like France that have a real chance to, if not beat them, at least make them feel uncomfortable, there will be hey, this is our best option. This is our best guy to throw the ball to. And I'm interested to see exactly how high up the pecking order Joel is when push comes to shove, because it'll say a lot about how the rest of these guys feel about him, but also, the rest of the guys on the floor with them.
Yeah, because it's one thing, again, to be in the All-Star game and they want to give him the ball, which we've talked about and which meant something at that time because they were accepting of him, and we were like, oh, okay, they accept him for who he is. They understand how great he is. But now, as you just lay that out there, he has never been here, and with the game on the line, will they trust him to go? Will Steve Kerr ask him to be a little bit more in the block in a situation like that instead of that mid post, that elbow extended area, for him to get a good look where everybody else is playing off of him around the perimeter, cutting, baseline, cutting in the middle of the floor, giving him some different options and all. And how does he respond to that? So I can't wait to see also, because to your point, when it gets down to it, it still sets in where the ego takes over and says, I got this, guys, don't worry about it. Whether it's Kevin Durant in the past, Kobe Bryant, Carmelo Anthony, the runs that they had been on when they would do that, even last summer, where they realized after a while that it was Anthony Edwards that needed the basketball in those clutch situations. And he responded for the most part. So how does that play out here now? And tonight, playing against Canada, you mentioned France. France has some good size in the front court where you have those bigs, of course, with Wembanyama, Rudy Gobert, and others. This Canada team is not that big in terms of height and size. They are good. They are skilled. They're very talented, but size-wise, in terms of their big front court, the Team USA squad might have an advantage there with the three bigs that they have there, not to mention 6'8" LeBron James, 6'9", 7-foot Kevin Durant also out there. They have a good mixture that they can go in a lot of different ways. So when it does get down to it, I'm curious to see how they do respond to the heat that they are going to take out there in that moment on the floor. So yes, and just as people were laying out there agreeing with us outside of Curry, the Anthony Edwards part with Joel Embiid, the partnership, I want to see how he does it too, because in this one, he understands that while he play off of me, find me, get me the ball, there are going to be those moments, though, where he does make that great pocket pass. He does make that kick ahead pass. That's the right play. He does make that defensive stop that leads to an opportunity out in the open floor for a break that gets them exactly what they need in transition. That could be a 5-0 run that separates themselves from Team Canada tonight at Thomas and Mack. So it's exciting. It's exciting to see this one. It's great to see Embiid out there again. I want to see where he fits in with all of those guys. Yep. So,
yeah, right, baby. USA.
When we come back, we have to get into some things that happen with Team USA, and we also have to talk about some Sixers related transactions, and also get into a few other things as we go along, as we bring you show number 2 live from Las Vegas, as we get ready for the Team USA scrimmage against Team Canada, see what Joel Embiid does against that other squad. We'll do that when we get back after a quick break here from our good people as we try to choose some sort of chill out here.
Yeah, guys, listen. Some days you think you're going to a basketball practice, you're going to get out of the heat, and then you get stopped by the Secret Service and told you actually have to stand outside when it's 115 degrees out because the vice president is here. I know you guys can all relate to that, right? Has this ever happened to you? I'm sure it has, right? Well, if it hasn't, but it does in the future or something similar happens to you, you always have that opportunity to step back, collect yourself, understand that you're dealing with the Secret Service, and then choose chill, and then choose an ice cold Coors Light. Because with Coors Light, you know you're getting an ice cold beer when the mountains turn blue on the bottles and cans as they hit that perfect temperature. When we're out here in the desert, we already showed you on the show yesterday that nice neon sign, chill, it's happy hour in Las Vegas from Coors Light. You could certainly drink a few adult beverages, a few nice, cold filtered, cold layered, cold packaged Coors Light beers and get mountain cold refreshment to get you through these tumultuous, just 110 plus degree days in Las Vegas. I'm sure as we're working late night tonight at the arena, going to need to decompress after, quite a bit of work, being active all day today in Vegas. I'll look forward to choosing chill myself. So when you choose to rise above it all, choose chill, choose Coors Light. Get Coors Light delivered straight to your door with Instacart by going to CoorsLight.com/PHLY basketball. Celebrate responsibly. Coors Brewing Company, Golden, Colorado.
And we also have to let you know that we are driven by the search for better. When it comes to hiring, the best way to search for a candidate isn't to search at all. Don't search, match with Indeed. If you need to hire, you need Indeed. Indeed is your matching and hiring platform with over 350 million global monthly visitors, according to Indeed data, and a matching engine that helps you find quality candidates fast. Ditch the busy work. Use Indeed for scheduling, screening, and messaging so you can connect with the candidates faster. And Indeed doesn't just help your hire faster. 93% of employees agree Indeed delivers the highest quality match compared to other job sites, according to a recent Indeed survey. Leveraging over 140 million qualifications and preferences every day, Indeed's matching engine is constantly learning from your preferences. So the more you use Indeed, the better it gets. Join more than 3.5 million businesses worldwide that use Indeed to hire great talent fast. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your job mobility. More visibility at Indeed.com/AllCity. Just go to Indeed.com/AllCity right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/AllCity. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed. And with that, we have a breaking news sort of segment here presented by Indeed. As we are out here for Team USA, and we're wondering what Joel Embiid is going to look like in this environment. One of the names that we did not mention, but he did speak yesterday. We talked about him just briefly because he talked yesterday before he decided that he needed to leave Team USA, and that is Kawhi Leonard. So breaking news, Kawhi Leonard has decided to step away from Team USA. Before we got here and coming into this situation, there was talk that he might have to step away just because of some health issues, some injury issues, as they wanted to make sure that he was good to go. So he got through the first 3 days of training camp here with Team USA, but unfortunately for him, he has to step away. So what did Team USA and Grant Hill and company do? They went to Indeed. They checked.
Indeed they did.
Indeed they did. And they pulled out another Boston Celtics.
Well, first they went to Coors Light because they were upset about the state of the job market. And then they went to Indeed to see, all right, I really got to pull myself up here and figure out who's got the resume.
Well, there were a couple of resumes there, one of which is his other teammate that did not get selected. He got the nod here. But Derek White making the team here, accepting the invitation. So he's going to get around this basketball team as soon as possible before they leave for Dubai. Team USA had to call on Indeed to go out there and acquire Derek White. So they did so by calling on Derek White, taking the guesswork out of making sure that they had the right person. So listeners of this show, again, will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/AllCity. That's Indeed.com/AllCity. Terms and conditions apply. need to hire, you need Indeed. And I had to tell that to Grant Hill last night yesterday early, when Kyle and I walked over to get our credentials and we saw Grant Hill. I had to tell him, hey, if you're looking for a replacement, and it's not me, I have a name in mind. They didn't take him, but they went with Derek White. And his resume is pretty good, coming off of, again, a situation where he wins a championship. His name was in the pool to start this whole process off with Grant Hill and Team USA deciding on the squad that they wanted to select. A little surprised that they didn't go his other teammate, which was the finals MVP and Jaylen Brown.
I think Jaylen Brown was a little surprised too.
We'll get to that in just a second. But I guess here they looked at it where they had enough scoring. They wanted a more defensive-minded player to come in and do the dirty work instead of worrying about point production. Even though we can look at Jaylen Brown as a two-way guy, maybe on his resume, guys, right? The left hand in the scouting report, it's not good enough. And these guys over there with the fundamentals with these countries, they're like, oh, that's cake. We can go the other way. He puts the ball left hand, we're going the other way. They went with Derek White instead. Kyle, what do you make of the Derek White replacement for Kawhi Leonard, and how does this impact and affect the team?
I mean, first of all, I'm completely shocked that Kawhi Leonard was not healthy enough to play for Team USA. Who could have seen that coming, right? Like, I love Kawhi. It also is very fitting that the Sixers, of all franchises, the one time he's been healthy in a half decade is when he went on a nuclear apocalyptic run and single-handedly knocked them out of the playoffs. So obviously big respect to Kawhi, and hope that the knee gets better, but just seems like one of those things that it's just about managing it, and it's always a problem. As far as Derek White goes, I mean, I always tend to value having one of these types of guys on the team, and he certainly has shown his worth and his value to the Celtics. Like, made a fairly compelling case to make the All-Star team this year. And while I didn't end up making it, played a huge role in their success. Obviously has the familiarity with Tatum and Holiday already, so there's built-in chemistry. If Steve Kerr wants to be a real sicko and go Boston heavy on his lineup, he certainly is capable of throwing a few of them out there, and then you have 3/5 of unfortunately the current NBA champions on the floor at one time. So I'm not shocked that they just went utility route, because once you get past I think if you can get the biggest name guys, right, like the Durants, the LeBrons, the Kawhis, the Embiids, the Currys, you certainly care about fit, but you worry about that less. But once you get past that first tier and you have enough star power and a guy drops out, it's like, yeah, we don't really need to bring in another like offensive hub type of player. Let's bring in somebody who defends, who has some, positional versatility, who can put it on the floor, who's been a good shooter as of late. I'm perfectly okay with it. I'm also perfectly okay with Grant Hill blowing up the Celtics from the inside and pissing off Jaylen Brown enough to cause a several emoji reaction tweet. So perfectly fine with Derek White. Would have obviously preferred someone who's related to a member of the podcast to get a nod, given that they also appeared at a recent FIBA World Cup. But, he's on the Knicks now, so screw that guy.
I just want to point out, Eugene had a good point in the chat. You are tampering harder to get McHale on Team USA than you ever did to get him on a Sixers, and shame on you.
You are absolutely right, Eugene. Shame on Devon for not tampering harder.
When we're talking about Indeed and resume, I'm looking at it like this: 2 national championships.
So you're criticizing Indeed now.
Gold medal. No, I'm talking about that's building his resume.
Advice.
Gold medal. So yeah, but no, you're right, Kyle. And just they didn't need another offensive guy. They needed a guy who can just do a do-it-all player, and that's what they got in Derek White. This is the only time we will root for Boston Celtics players to do anything successfully, is on the national stage for the country and winning a gold medal for Team USA. But good player. Have liked Derek White. Think he fits in this role. He understands he's just going to come in and do his job. They already have one in Drew Holiday. Now they add another in Derek White. So Derek, just another player who can come in with a seamless fit.
Yeah, it really is. Like if you're gonna have to try to replace Kawhi, obviously there's no Kawhi. He's a one of one. But a guy who can, shoot the three and also made back-to-back all defensive teams, pretty good option to have. Pretty good option to have. And he
Yep.
obviously has chemistry with two other players because he's playing with them.
Yep,
The
absolutely.
other thing that would have been cool, but doesn't seem like they were particularly inclined to go this route. Cooper Flagg has been making some big time noise on the select team during this mini camp. And look, I know he hasn't even played college ball yet, right? But there is some precedent for bringing along a real young guy to get their first true experience at the Olympics with the the rest of the established guys. So that would have been a cool storyline at least. And I was talking to some people, media, coaches, some people yesterday who were all like, listen, all these teams that don't seem like they have a plan right now, these bad teams, it's like, what does that roster look like? There's a reason for that. Like everybody that is not trying to make real moves toward contending or being a playoff team, it's because of that kid and several other kids in that class. So it was unfortunate that we got boxed out of the gym by the U.S. government. The U.S. government doesn't want us to see Cooper Flagg.
Maybe they can help solve the Sixers rebounding problems because they very effectively boxed us out. No, but there's no way Kerr and Hill were taking a 17-year-old at this stage. It would have been a fun storyline, fun to watch. But like, not only is he 17, but he doesn't turn 18 for like another 6 months. It's one thing to have college players, which they've done in the past. He's really, really young.
Yeah. But they've said some nice things about that kid. So he seems to be the next one for sure. Coming down that pipeline there. And see quickly before we get to the Sixers, Tyrese Maxey was never in the original pool of this group. And Derek, he had a very good season last season. He was even better this year. Grant Hill also does games for Turner and seen Tyrese Maxey a lot, but he wasn't a part of this group. And I was, Austin Reeves was in there and other names. Tyrese Halliburton also in there, more of a traditional point guard, but Tyrese Maxey not so much. What do you think of? Does his style of play not necessarily lend to the game that they want to play? Or what do you think it is? And do you think he has a shot later on down the line?
Oh, he certainly has a shot later on down the line. He's still very, very young. Not Cooper Flagg young, but very young by NBA player standards. I think probably in terms of like some of the questionable ones, like probably want someone like White because of his defense, or Halliburton because international play tends to be a little more fast-paced and transition-based, and maybe that is what they were looking at. Or maybe Halliburton was just so great early on that they're sort of stuck with that, and Tyrese, really came to the forefront in the playoffs, and maybe that was too late to change things. But Tyrese does have a very adaptable skill set. Like we've spoken at length about how he's great on ball in terms of his pick and roll scoring and one of the best off-ball shooters in the world. So certainly, those kind of skill sets, shooting and dribbling, tend to be real easy to mix with other stars. So I do think he fits. I think he will fit in future iterations. Perhaps maybe they just didn't think his defense was up to where they wanted for what would be more of a role player type in this environment. But I certainly think he's in consideration. He should be in consideration. He should probably feel a little bit snubbed. And maybe that puts a little bit of a chip on his shoulder to come back next season and prove them wrong. But it's also hard for me to get too upset about like Halliburton or White making it because they're terrific young players as well.
No, I think his beef is not being in that pool, especially when you look at like, no disrespect, a little disrespect. Tyler Hero, like, come on, get him the fuck out of here. Like that's the ship has sailed. It's like someone like that is an example.
I mentioned
or like
Austin Reeves also from last year, and
No,
but
last year
at least in Reeves' case, that's a guy that like these teams or the people who run these teams always tend to value, or like if you show up for them when it's like, hey, look, it's the World Cup and most of these guys don't want to play, right? And so the guys who are like, raise a hand and say I want to be there, they tend to get preferential treatment. Now, whether that's right or wrong, and that, like, I don't think Austin Reeves is one of the 40 best players, American players that you could put in that pool, but that's at least part of that. Hero, it's like, what are we doing here? And like with White and those other guys, to Derek's point, it's more about just skill set stuff, right? Like, I don't think you're really comparing what Maxey does or can do to, why you'd bring a Derek White or a Drew Holiday for that matter, who I think they're in kind of similar categories.
All right, and that segment there, the breaking news segment that we had, was brought to you again by our good friends. But from Indeed, this emergency segment was brought to you by Indeed. Listeners of the show will once again get a $55 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/AllCity. That's Indeed.com/AllCity. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed. All right, back to the Sixers and Summer League hoops. Trying to find some jobs for some of these young players, Kyle. And Game 2 was played last night in the Salt Lake City Summer League, and the Sixers will play their third and final game tonight before traveling to Las Vegas, playing their first game. Then on Saturday, different type of game from Ricky Council in game number 2 than we saw in game 1. Defense totally shifting a lot his way in game 2 for the Memphis Grizzlies versus what we saw in game number 1. Saw some good production from some other players that we didn't see much of in game 1. What was your outlook in general from the Summer Sixers game 2, as they're now 1-1 in a close buzzer beater loss?
It definitely felt more like a summer league game than the previous night, which you could chalk up to, 1, it is a summer league game, but 2, it's also the second night on a back-to-back, and these guys are a little weary, so the decision-making falters, the shots stop falling. Certainly Ricky did not have as good of a game. Nobody had as good of a game. I'd say if there was one major positive from that game, and I don't want to act like Bona was had his perfect evening, because he fouled like 700 times in that game, and you can see all the over aggressiveness stuff for him. I think the thing that I was most encouraged by was Bona was, I believe it was 6 for 6 from the free throw line, including a pair that they really needed down the stretch in a close game. And, that was one of the major red flags on his scouting report, because, look, that's something that you can work on and improve. But because his ancillary skills are so limited, right? We have concerns about him in dribble handoffs, concerns about his hands, so on and so forth. If you can only really dunk the ball, but teams can just foul you when you go up every time, they're incentivized to just hack the hell out of you basically every time you catch the ball near the rim, and just say, we'll dare you to make free throws. And so that's an important thing to see from him, is that there's some early success at the free throw line. Hopefully that's a point of emphasis for him. I'm sure it is. If we're talking about concern points, I thought Ricky dribbled himself into trouble quite a bit, and did not read where help was coming from. There's a lot of stunting inside from Memphis, and they were able to catch him with a loose handle as he's trying to get to the basket. Some of that comes from just like trying to drive relentlessly, and when teams know you'd rather put it on the floor and go to the basket rather than take a shot, swing the ball around the perimeter, whatever it is, they can load up and say, we know where you want to get to, and we'll beat you to that spot and force you to go through our guys. So not a particularly huge concern just based on one game, but because of the question mark that is his shot long term, it's something that we have to continue monitoring as he goes from, look, it's easy to come in off the bench and just be an instant energy guy, right? Or relatively easy. Obviously, none of us on this show could go in there and do it at an effective level in the NBA. But once you go from that guy, the young, energetic guy, to, okay, you're a rotation guy, maybe you're far down the scouting report, but you're at least included in the scouting report. Then you have to work on cleaning up the things that the teams identify as your habits, your weaknesses, and all that good stuff, so that they can't counter you as easily. So it's a work in progress for him, but that's part of why he needs to play these games at Summer League to work through this kind of stuff.
Yeah, and it's always tough because, like, I hate overreacting to Summer League really in either direction, because especially when we're talking about like Ricky and McCain, they're playing roles that they're probably not going to play again, possibly ever, but certainly for the next couple of years of their career. Like, yeah, Ricky struggled driving in traffic. He struggled reading where the help was coming from. But like, if other teams are doubling Ricky in the regular season, then I have no idea what the hell happened. Like, I mean, the Secret Service must have prevented like every other Sixer from coming to the arena. That's the only explanation we can come up with. It's just not something you're going to ask him to do. Like, make an open shot, attack a closeout, occasionally make a drive, and play hard defense. That's going to be his role. So, like, struggling now after he just had a monster game and they come back and they game plan for him, it's a little bit expected. And I don't really care too much that he did so. Would I love for him to be reading double teams and making, great skip passes right now? Yeah, but like, it's just not, that's not necessary for his role right now. And I always look at Summer League more so like, show your potential, not your consistency. Because A, these are young players. They don't tend to be consistent. And B, with the role that they're in, it's likely a role they've never really played before, at least recently. And they're not going to play again in the future. So them not being consistent is not really a huge concern. And I think both McCain and Ricky showed flashes of what they're capable of the NBA skill sets that they do have. And for that, I still classify the first two games as a success, even if last night was admittedly much tougher to watch.
I did have a bit of an issue with Ricky dribbling into trouble because he kept doing it over and over again. And we've seen it before. We've seen him have more success in the NBA games where he was able to still get those shots off because of his how strong he is, get those shots off, maybe get an and one, maybe get an opportunity to just make the shot in general and do that. But he's had his fair share of games where we saw those plays where it was a bad thing, bad habit that he needs to get out of. And he's doing it again because of the success that he had in game one. And he felt like he can do it again, maybe bully his way into the paint and get to the rim, or even get the call from the official. And while you said, just being out there and do some things and not being consistent, this has been a consistent thing that's a bad habit that I personally would like to see him get out of and take the time right now to do so, because they're not just going to part the sea every time for him to go out and just go down the lane and do what he wants to do. So it's keeping the dribble, making that extra pass where he can maybe get the ball back and just restart the offense if there's enough time on the shot clock. That's the one thing when it comes to the Ricky part of yesterday's game where I would like to see him making sure that because it's not the first time, not new. This is something that he's been doing. So I would just like to see him clean that part up where it's not a big issue going forward. But it was good to see McCain knock down some threes out there. It was good to see Justin Edwards play well in his real first action in this game. So some positive signs. They were up by 18, and they Memphis fought back, and they did not have Zach Edey, but they fought back and they earned that win. But the Sixers, again, I still like the players that they have and want to see them on the stage and see what they do most certainly tonight and when they get here later in the week for their Las Vegas games. Ed Wright asked us, probably not happening in Super Chat, but with Şengün work at the 4? Ed, don't think
probably
so.
not. I'm not a real believer in him as a defensive player at the 5. So I don't really see how that works once you ask him to play a more difficult role for a guy with his weaknesses.
And again, I think the value around the league for him is still pretty high. So you're going to have to give up a sizable chunk of the assets you have. In order to give up that chunk of assets, you have to really believe that the player is going to be a good fit where you're going to put him long term. And I don't think that would be Philadelphia.
Saw his rumor where his name was attached to the New York Knicks by the possible, since they're really trying to figure out that center spot. Mitch Robinson, yes, but who else? Walker Kessler. Now Şengün's name is added to that list, and it is what it is. I don't see that one.
What are they trading? Like 10% of the rights to Madison Square Garden? Like they have nothing left. I don't know.
I don't know.
James Dolan's gonna have to sell part of the cable network.
John Starks. Send him so he's not running up and down.
Well, they don't like Oakley, though. I'm sure they'll give him up for sure.
They'll trade him. Absolutely. One more piece of
have an enforcer for the foreseeable future. He's like, even to this day, you still hear stories about like, man, Charles Oakley's a bad MFer. So
last summer I was around him.
Tyrone Hill's still having nightmares.
you can just his presence, Kyle, to your point, just being around him at the same table as him, it's there. It's still there. One more piece of news for the Sixers: Paul Reed. Yesterday, we saw that he was claimed by a basketball team. Not one that we like talking about. We like making fun of them, but he has a job, it seems, and that's Paul Reed being claimed by the Detroit Pistons. So what does that mean for his contract? Or when they claim him off of waivers, Paul Reed to the Pistons?
Yeah, so basically when you claim a player, you pick up their contract as it was written in the past. So they resume the rest of his non-guaranteed 2-year contract. I think that's probably a good move for them. It's a good way to move cap space to sort of like push that cap space forward to the trade deadline. You give Paul a couple of months to try out and see whether he's someone you want to keep around. If not, you can use him as a trade chip. I think that's probably a good spot for both of them because Paul will get some playing time, a chance to prove himself. And if it doesn't work out, the Pistons get a trade asset at the deadline. So I think it's probably smart.
We talked about this briefly yesterday. I just want to give this one to chat for the future. I was thinking of, so obviously they have a couple recent former Sixers there. And normally you're like, oh, it's Sixers West. And then I was going through to my head and it was like, it's more like Sixers Midwest. And no, actually it's just Sixers Mid. Feels like the proper categorization of that setup, right? Between Tobias and Paul. Obviously, we wish them the best as people. Glad that Paul gets to continue making some decent money for now, rather than going back to minimum lands. Love that for Paul. So, yeah, look, I said it earlier this week or sometime in the last week or two. My sense of time has been skewed
sometime this offseason
by Las Vegas. I do still think Paul can be a legit contributor, right? I think last year was a bad year for him. I think you saw his weaknesses. I think the weaknesses were amplified by how he was asked to play and the surrounding personnel, right? Like when you're an undersized center and you need help with the rebounding, you're not a true, drop style rim protector, and you're playing with a rotation that at the end of that season has 3 tiny guards in the lineup. And, those are a few of one of them is one of the most important players on the team. And then there's Kyle Lowry, there's Buddy Hield, who's not a rebounder. There's Tobias, who obviously is going to deal with that problem in Detroit, but not exactly the dirty work rebounding type guy. Like there are just a lot of things that make him look worse than I think he probably is with better fitting pieces around him. I think when they played a bigger lineup, they played more switch heavy lineups with James Harden here. I thought you saw a lot of what Paul's value is, which might not be as an every night rotation guy, but certainly someone who can be in the mix for a team, someone that in a series in the playoffs for a smaller role. We've already seen him have good moments in the playoffs. That was last season. It was not like this is ancient history, right? And he is not an old, washed up, lost his athleticism type of player. So I do think in the right situation, I don't know that this is it, that Paul can still be helpful. So I'm hoping that he can figure it out. But I do think it was probably the right time with the contract and kind of what they want out of that position for both sides to start fresh.
Oh, it was absolutely the right time, both because you got to use that cap space on Caleb Martin and because you needed to change a backup center spot and because Paul Reed probably needs a little bit of a reality check. One of the criticisms of Paul Reed, pretty much ever since he was at DePaul, but certainly since he's been with the Sixers, is he tries to do too much offensively. Like he thinks that he should be featured a little bit more. When he gets the ball, he always got that instinct to kind of attack and maybe play outside of his comfort zone. I thought Doc Rivers actually did a good job of dialing that back, and it feels a little awkward to give Doc credit, but I thought Doc had him playing pretty much.
I'm going to clip that. I thought Doc Rivers did a good job, and I'm going to just hold on to that. Now I just said it. Damn it.
I think part of that was also because he was playing with James Harden, and that was maybe the perfect kind of point guard to bring out the best and put Paul in a spot where he didn't have to do too much offensively. But now that he's sort of like been humbled a little bit, Can he go back and focus on what he's good at? Because at DePaul and early on in the Sixers career, he was a very good chaos agent on defense. He was a little bit of a chaos agent on offense as well. That's why he has not maybe reached his potential. But defensively, he forces a lot of turnovers, switchable. He has some skills on that end, even if he's not a true rim protector. It sort of ties back into our conversation of maybe Ricky and being put in environments where you are the lead guy, like Paul was in the G League, like Ricky is right now, can bring out some bad habits and some bad tendencies, and you've got to then dial them back. And can Paul go to now another situation where he's going to get playing time, where they don't have a ton of offensive talent? Can he dial back his instincts and play the role that he is capable of succeeding in? And I think if he can do that, he's an NBA player. Is he a starter? No. Is he a backup? Might be dependent, like context dependent. But I do think the switchability, the ability to force turnovers, and the hustle is enough that will get him on the court throughout various points of his NBA career. But he's got to buy in and play the right role. And this is sort of the next first step in getting back on the right path for him.
Glad he got a job. He's a good guy. And like you said, Kyle, I'm glad he's still being able to make some paycheck, some good money while there with Detroit and get an opportunity. He should make that team. We're moving on from James Wiseman, also Marvin Bagley out of there. Jalen Duren is the starting center. You have Isaiah Stewart. They have, front court there with some talented players, but there should be a role for him there coming off the bench in the reserve role. Our good people, Jay the Jungle and Martian Lynch, say he's officially in the mud.
I don't know. I feel like $8 million gets you out of the mud.
I think it's more the Pistons
Playing
organization.
time-wise, maybe, yeah.
I think
the
it's
Pistons are the mud, but
They're the
contract is we're at like net neutral mud right now. I don't know what that would be. We had, by the way, before we get out of here, we did have a few people shout out Aluma, one of the nice summer league.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I would say nice summer league surprises because he's old for a summer league guy. Like that's, so I would say this about him and Jeff Doughton, who I think both of those guys have played well. They basically have to play well. They don't, if you're 26, 27 years old in the summer league and you're not one of the most, if not the most polished player on the floor, you got to start, speaking of Indeed, you might have to start browsing their resumes and looking at what the next step is. So I don't mean to poke fun at those guys. Aluma has been very good. He's shown a lot of different skills. He's had soft hands. He's finished well around the basket. He's had some nice defensive moments. And so I think he and Doughton they feel more like quad A type players to me, where they're good G League guys. And maybe once in a while they could have a nice fill-in performance at the NBA level. But I wouldn't go beyond, like, if they're on two-way deals, like, I don't think that's crazy to have those type of guys just available, ready to go. But I saw, maybe not in chat today, but I've seen some suggestions like, well, they should just keep Doughton on one of those minimums. Like, yeah, maybe, but I think I would try to aim higher.
I would aim higher.
Who I'm going for there.
I think the way you phrase it, the quad A baseball player is pretty much perfect. Like when he's down in the minor league, so to speak, he's going to look good and qualify. When you bring him up, you're going to see his deficiencies. He's fine for a spell. He's fine on a minimum contract, quite frankly. Certainly fine to bring in late in the season if you need to fill in a hole in the roster. But I think at this point of the season, I agree with Kyle. You aim a little bit higher.
Real fast before we step away, Eric Bikes fan 28 on Twitter says, "Great show, guys. Do you think Jared McCain could potentially eventually be a backup point guard / ball handler off the bench? Seems like he is making some good passes so far in the summer league. I know initially saw him as more of a small 2. Thanks, Vikes fan 33. What do you guys think?
I would say I have more belief in that after the first couple games than I did prior to summer league. Now I'm not overcorrecting and saying, well, he showed point guard skills in 2 summer league games. That means he can be a point guard, right? Like that. We're going to have to wait and see how it looks against NBA competition. I do think, though, that you could see one, and I know Derek has hit on this already. The 0.5 decision making has been good, but he's also made some good interior passes, like gets to a spot near the elbows or getting toward the rim and making some good drop offs. He had a no look pass to Bona coming out of I believe it was out of a handoff yesterday. It was really nice. Had some slick passes in there. So maybe he's not like the high level playmaker you would want if he was going to have a big role. But if you were to tell me, he'll split time at the backcourt spots, depending on who's on the floor, I don't think it's crazy. And I know we only touched on him briefly earlier, but it was good to see the shot go down after the tough first game. Had a little bit of a tougher time inside the arc trying to finish. But yeah, I think to Derek's point earlier about you just want to see, the potential and not necessarily expect the consistency here. We've seen him do, I think, just about everything you'd want him to do in year one in some short bursts. The key is going to be expanding on that and obviously doing it against better competition.
Yeah, I sort of just want to echo what Kyle said about you don't need to make sweeping proclamations after 2 preseason games. It's really easy to do it with the young players. You come in with a baseline. If they disappoint, you overreact. If they show something you didn't expect, you overreact. It's one thing to maybe have a little more creation equity than we expected when he was coming into the draft. It's another thing to be able to confidently say, yes, he can do that at an NBA level. I certainly still need to see more to trust him being a 10 to 15 minute per game backup point guard. But I think the early signs are encouraging. But that's just what they are. They're just early signs. The key is going to be, how does he create advantages? Because it's not going to be with his speed. It's not going to be with his change of direction. Can he take the threat of the shot to create advantages for his teammates and then find the right timing and make the right reads out of that? And that will be his next growth. It's more so that even to me than just the passing, because I think the passing is good enough, but it's real tough to be a legitimate, viable point guard without creating those advantages for your teammates. And can he find a way, like I said, to leverage his shooting to do that?
All right, folks, we appreciate everybody for hanging out with us on this Wednesday for show number 2 on the West Coast. And we'll be back tomorrow, and we'll have a lot to talk about, of course, from the first exhibition game for Team USA with Joel Embiid as part of the squad. This show at PHLY Sixers podcast was brought to you by Rothman Orthopedics, our great friends from Rothman. So if you're looking and you're injured, if you're a little banged up and you want to make sure that you have a place to go to get checked out, Rothman Orthopedics, they are the place for you. They were the place for me. They make sure I'm good. They'll make sure you're good. They have a ton, and I mean a ton, of orthopedic surgeons or just simply people to check you out to make sure you're good overall. They specialize in you. Rothman Orthopedics specializes in orthopedics, and you visit rothmanortho.com/PHLY to learn more and make an appointment today. It is time for On This Wednesday, since we could not fit it in yesterday. Kyle, can we get a roll call? Las Vegas style here.
We absolutely can. And I just want to make one last note here. Whoever decided to play summer league games for the same teams 3 games in a row should be in federal prison. If you're talking about who the Secret Service really needs to go after, it's whoever decided that Utah Summer League should be a back-to-back-to-back for those guys.
That was ridiculous.
Wanted to throw that out there. But before we get out of here, got to say hello to a lot of my people.
Yes, Jess, Vegas style.
Public enemy number 1, Money Mar.
What
Says
up, Mar?
Vegas, baby. What's up, Money?
We got to make some money while we out here, guys. Money.
Jess with the Purple Heart. What up, Jess? Martian
You
Lynch
up,
saying, drink some water and mind your business. That's a great life philosophy, my friend. My guy Gavin in the chat. Bootzilla.
Boots.
Dev Miliano. Big Mike McD. Eugene Ross.
What up,
Corey
Mike?
Morris. My girl Winona. Jay of the
Hey,
Jungle.
Nona.
Dave Doer.
Hey.
Aaron.
What up, Eric?
In the house, as always. I don't know how loud I can yell this because we are in the hotel, but darkness. How about that? How about
it's the daytime?
that?
It's all good. It's new.
Profit
We're good.
1. Phil W.
What up,
Phil?
Phil?
Number 1 fan here with us in the building
Yes.
today. Well, the Phi Chi is
Phi
in here
Chi.
today.
Who else we got in here?
Shedfa. Shedfa in the building.
What up,
Rick
Shedfa?
Morris, Corey Morris,
What up,
Marcus
Corey?
Blackstock, our guy Al, the 2-minute warning.
What up, Al?
What up to Al?
Al
Indeed.
said, what's up with Eric Gordon's contract? It's not a minimum deal. Couple bucks.
What?
He'll be fine.
Speaking of Eric Gordon, did you guys see his presser today?
Yeah, I saw it. Yeah.
That's about all we need. Just about as standard gets. Welcome to Eric Gordon.
He doesn't say a lot. There's that.
Good for him. He knows how to play the game. Shout out to, let's see, Ray Burrows also with us today. Some of you guys love to chat.
What
so
up,
it takes
Ray?
me a long time. All right, here's the last
Val
one.
Host is in there. Hey, Val.
Grateful Heart. Oh, we did see Val Host. We love Val Host. Thank you for coming through. I'm only bringing up Grateful Heart last because, chat, I've been trying to convince Devon and Derek to go to the Sphere to see Dead & Co. with me on Thursday night, which is our off night. I need you guys to put in some work and politic for me on my behalf to get them to go to the Sphere, because I damn sure am not going by myself, and I'm going to be sad if I leave without going to a concert. Thank you, everybody, for coming. If you have not already, hit the subscribe button, hit the bell icon so you get notifications each and every time we go live.
So put those ding icons, put the bell icons in there. Put the bell icons. All right, let me ask you this, since you brought that up, because I did mention this to you, but I didn't mention it as us going. The Dead concert, or should we go see New Edition in the residency instead?
That's not at the Sphere, man. I rock with New Edition. Don't get me wrong, but it's
we might get a BBD, Belle Biv DeVoe going on in there at the same time. I don't know. I'm just throwing it out there.
Guys, if you hit the thumbs up button, it will signal to these two to go see Dead & Co. with me. Mary Overfield said, love John Mayer. Please go. Dave says, the Sphere shows look incredible. Listen to all these reviews. Come on.
Look at this. Look at
Babby.
Saying, I'm
Get
there
to that
for the
Sphere.
Bobby Brown antics. Yes, Marshall. Yes.
Well, here's the good. Neil says both concerts are terrible, so just go to the Sphere. All right, everybody. It was great seeing y'all today.
Thank you,
We're
Bree.
gonna hit the 115-degree heat. Thank you to Bree back home. We will catch you guys tomorrow.
We got hoops tonight.